Shake up at 5:30 a.m., laundry situation not good. And when your focus is on helping your clients, it's easy to forget about yourself. But NASM knows trainers.
Morning, Ryan. It's okay.
And staying in front of the day isn't always as simple
Ryan.
as 1, 2, 3. So when the unexpected has you pressing pause,
What's the latest on creatine?
I'm going to get back to you on that.
let NASM1 help you press play. Visit NASM.org to sign up for a membership today.
Well, hello there, listeners. Welcome to this week's episode of the Better Than Fine podcast. I'm your host, wellbeing expert and wellness coach, Darlene Marshall, and I believe that there might just be two kinds of people in the world. People who find organizing and cleaning and caring for their space soothing and natural to them, and the messy people who just don't. And I am unquestionably the latter. And over the course of the time that I have known today's guest, on more than one occasion, she has broadened my horizons, invited me to reconsider that some of my unexamined beliefs and habits and behaviors around organizing my space and organizing my stuff and my relationship to my stuff could maybe use another look. I am fond of saying that I was raised by wolves, because it basically was. My family is a salt of the earth, manual labor. Keeping a tidy home that was well polished was not the top of the to-do list. And very often, most of the adults in the household were coming in muddy and filthy and dirty. And it just wasn't what we were focused on growing up. So there were all kinds of skills that I think the tidy, organized people just take for granted, because why wouldn't you? And I think that this could be true for lots of wellness domains, whether we're talking about getting into the gym, we're talking about nutrition, or we're talking about something like organizing. If it comes readily to you, you underestimate all of the foundational skills and beliefs and ideas that go into doing whatever that thing is at a high level. And I encountered this with coaches, with trainers, with practitioners of all stripes all the time, where for somebody who doesn't have any of the foundation that they came into, however they came into it, we often underestimate what a beginner truly needs and how easily that person can be overwhelmed if they don't have those foundational skills. So after a conversation with today's guest last summer, I really started rethinking the relationship, not just my relationship, but the relationship between personal organizing and wellness. And that's why I was so excited when I invited her to come on the show and she said yes. So our guest today is Rachel Lavin. She has been a personal trainer. She's been in this space. She's certified as a health coach. She's very well versed in wellness content, and she's a professional organizer. And also personally, I just find her absolutely hilarious. So I am so excited to have her on the show. Rachel, welcome to Better Than Fine.
Thank you, my friend. You look beautiful.
Oh, thank you so much. We were kvetching earlier about how you look like movie star today. So
yes, well, when you're of a certain age, Darlene, which you don't know yet, you get something called hot flashes, and you need to have a personal fan at all times.
Heck yes. Hey, Drew Barrymore can have a hot flash live on her show. You can have a hot flash live on Better Than Fine and own it, because we're lucky enough to be from a generation where we don't have to pretend that perimenopause and menopause are a thing that happen to women.
Thank you. I concur.
It's kind of bonkers to consider that how many generations of women have just been pretending that this didn't happen. Anyway, we digress.
I know.
We're off track already, and we just started. Anyway, I'm so excited to have you here. And I want to start off by inviting into this conversation, for being such a wolfy, messy person. I'm actually a really big fan of shows like The Home Edit and KonMari Method and Hoarders. I'm not a hoarder, and I think the majority of our listeners probably aren't hoarders. And I'm also not interested, despite the beauty of the shelf behind me, I'm not interested in cultivating aesthetic lifestyle. And I think there's a lot of people who just like aren't there in their life journey. Can you talk to us a little bit about what is organizing for the rest of us, for the happy middle, who don't want to have an Instagrammable life, but also aren't, like living in a hoard? What does it mean for the rest of us?
That is a great question. And the more I'm getting to go into other people's homes and see that they essentially have been stuck for however long. And that is really where, for me, that wellness background is coming into play really nicely. And I'm able to kind of deal with these people in a compassionate and empathetic way. But I think that there is so many different areas. Like you said, the one extreme is the home edit and having everything beautifully color coded. And then there's the hoarding. And then there's everything in between. So for me, what I am excited about to talk to you about today is that I think you have to be ready. You have to be ready for
Mm.
this change, whatever it is. I love your shelf, by the way. It looks very pretty. But not everybody understands I need this to look beautiful. No, no, no. I want to come home. I want to know where everything is. I don't want to have to think about it. And then I want to enjoy the rest of my evening by myself, with my family, with my friends, whatever it is. It just needs to be something that I step into, and it's like a breath of fresh air. It's not another thing that I have to think about. And
Yeah,
that's where
not just something else I have to do.
and that's where I find my organizing skills are best used, because I want it to be functional for you. If it ends up looking pretty, then great. I'm really happy about that. But are your cans gonna stay alphabetized and color coded? Probably not.
Oh God, no. And I'm one of those people that's like the rainbow bookshelf, the alphabetized bookshelves. Those are the things that make me anxious. I'm like, no, they need to be organized by like topic or interest or how they feel to me. Like, no, 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 no. So I'm with you. Like, and I want to pick out a few gems in there. The first being, whether we're talking about organizing or nutrition or movement or career or whatever, like you got to be ready for the change as opposed to it being something external. So I hear that 100%.
Yep.
And then the other thing being that like if you're doing your job as a professional organizer or whatever, you're doing the job yourself, that it's got to be functional for the person who's in it, right? It's not about anyone else but them. I don't know if you want to speak to either of those, but those were the gems that I heard in that framing.
Absolutely. So the first one that you pointed out was about being ready. I think that, a lot of your listeners hear you talk, all the time about being ready to start your wellness or your fitness journey. It is the same thing with organizing. If you are not ready to allow me into your home, to touch your things, to move your things, to ask you to maybe get rid of some things, it's not going to work. And I have been in that situation since starting this business where someone hired me and it was too much and they just couldn't do it. They couldn't finish the project. And I think gratefully I've been in this industry long enough that I don't take it personally, right? Because especially with my own journeys about my body and stuff like that, I have to be ready. And if I don't accept where I'm at in this present moment, it doesn't matter what you tell me, what you show me, new tips, new tricks, whatever it is. If I am not ready to make this and do it on my own, meaning to actually make that change, then it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and I think we could apply that advice to good advice for any coach and good advice for anyone looking to be coached, right? Like any coach to say, don't take it personally when your client isn't ready for a change or they thought they were ready and then they weren't as successful as they wanted to be. They didn't get the results they wanted. That it's not us, right? We're not doing that. That's their journey.
Yeah.
And also for the person looking to have a change in their life, asking themselves, am I really ready to change or do I just wish I was ready to change? You're listening to the Better Than Fine podcast. I am your host, Darlene Marshall. The guest is Rachel Lavin, well organized. We were talking about the relationship between wellness, personal wellness, and personal organization. Rachel, could you just tell us how did you get into being a professional organizer? Because I know there's like certs out there and all this stuff, but your journey into being in this role, I think, is unique, and also one that really is focused on owning your strengths. And I want people to hear it, because I think it's so valuable to people who are struggling to find their place. And there's so many people struggling to find their place right now.
Agreed. Well, I will probably cry when I answer this
Cry
question,
away.
because you know me, and you were there at that pivotal moment when I was telling you, like, I thought I had this purpose, right? I have been a personal trainer and a health coach for the past 2 decades. And I wrote a book on my own journey about learning to love my body, which I felt betrayed by for most of my life. And being in the fitness industry as a woman, I had this expectation to look a certain way, and I just never did. Or maybe I did for a minute. So
I never did.
I wrote my book, and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to change the world. I'm going to make every single woman fall in love with their body. And that's just what I'm meant to do. And it was not working out. It was not working out. And I hired you to help me figure out, what was I doing wrong? And why aren't women listening to me? Is no one understanding what I have to say? It's so powerful. You can be free. And it just wasn't hitting. And I left New York City right after COVID, and my hubby and I moved here to Greenville, South Carolina. Again, I hired you to help me figure out what do I need to do. And nothing felt authentic, nothing felt right. You and I would just talk weekly, and I would just, probably for like the 45 minutes of our hour session, I would just cry because I just didn't understand. And then I had a lightning moment that was like, I'm chasing something that it's not sticking because it doesn't feel right, and it's not the right place for me right now. And I took a step back, and I was doing something. A friend came over, and I was showing her something in my closet, and she's like, oh my God, I need you to do this to my closet. And I was like, okay. She's like, how much do you charge? And I didn't even have an answer for her. I was like, you're my friend, I'll do it. And I remember talking to you like very shortly after that happened, and you said, well, how did that make you feel? And I was like, I'm in love. And I hadn't felt that alive in like 2 years. I had to pay attention to it. And I was like, okay, well, let me just see where this goes. I don't have to give up fitness and wellness. Let me just see what happens. And in the past year and a half, I have been steadily busy, not only with people in my loft, but now I'm broadening my horizons and getting clients outside and in Greenville and in other parts of South Carolina. And I love it. I love it so much. And I definitely do not want to completely remove myself from wellness and fitness. It's still a very big part of who I am, but this is the first time in a long time that I haven't felt like I was chasing something. And I think that so many of us female fitness professionals feel like we're going to die in this industry and we have to just keep doing it. And so to be able to do both is pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, and thank you for sharing it. Thank you for taking us on that ride with you, because the things I wanted people to hear was you were so frustrated with this vision of the impact you thought you were supposed to have, which was always based in helping people, right? Helping people live well. And when the opportunity called you, it felt different. It didn't feel like something you were forcing. It was calling because it spoke to your strengths, it spoke to your interests, and it spoke to your underlying belief and purpose, which is helping people live well. And all of the skills that you had as a trainer, as a coach, make you just that much more effective. at this other avenue of help that I would argue is a form of wellness coaching, in the same way that like Derek Brown is out there talking about mindful drinking and he's using wellness coaching framing. He's just talking about mindful drinking. And there's just a different application of this same foundational skill set around what wellness really is and what a coach really does, which is support people to make meaningful change that's internally driven. So yeah, thank you for unpacking that for us. Let's take another peel of this onion where we're talking about organizing as a wellness activity. Can you speak to us about, well, how? Because I think there's people out there who would organize like, what are you talking about? It's just like throwing stuff away and putting it on the shelves, which is not that. Talk to those people. Talk to the doubters and the haters.
Yep.
Why is organizing a wellness activity? Why does this actually matter?
In the past year, I have dealt with some women who I might have mentioned in the beginning, they're stuck. They're stuck in their past. They are feeling guilty about letting go of some things because maybe someone has passed. Maybe they have been telling themselves the same story for a long time. And so I have to keep these things because of this, and that. But they're feeling like this. And I love when you say this call to action, because that gnawing thought process or that gnawing feeling inside you when you're like, if you say something all the time, I need to get rid of this stuff. I need to clean up this mess. I need, it's because you want to, but you don't know how to. And I think that's why there's so many amazing people in the world who do have a skill set that can help you get unstuck. And that's what I like to qualify myself as, the professional home organizer that's going to help you get unstuck. Because there's nothing worse than feeling like you're alone. Nothing, 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 nothing. And are there charlatans in the world? Are there people who just think that you need to make your home look pretty and color coordinated? Of course. And I don't have any ill will or if feelings about that. If that's how you want your home, great. But the people that are finding me, the people that are asking my help and who are hiring me are emotionally stuck, and they definitely need a nice empathetic push.
They need support. And that's a wellness coaching skill set right there, right? That empathetic, compassionate nudge and maybe some examination of the belief underneath. I also love that charlatan has crept into your lexicon. You're listening to the Better Than Fine podcast. I'm your host, Darlene Marshall, and my guest today is Rachel Lavin. We were talking about the relationship between wellness and personal organizing and how you can get well organized. Rachel, how does someone know that they are ready? Because you keep talking about like, okay, you do it when you're ready, you do it when you're ready. And I certainly have my thoughts about how I know people are ready for a wellness journey. How do people know if they're ready to start tackling their organization? And how do they know they need help?
That's a great question. Well, I think the first part of it is just like in the wellness industry, when you finally reach out to a professional like a health coach or a trainer, you're at that point where you're ready to at least attempt to make the change. And so when I first get phone calls and the first thing out of people's mouth is, I have been putting this off for years and years and years, and now I just want to get it done. So there's that sense of urgency, like I just need help getting it done. And I love those people because they're super motivated. And then you get to the second half of the equation where you actually enter their home and you start the process. And that's when the really raw emotions happen. There's lots of tears, there's lots of anxiety, there's lots of, I almost called to cancel because I don't want you to see the mess. And it's
That's
like,
the person who's like, I almost canceled because I overate on vacation and I don't want you to weigh me, right? Like that's it's like, we're not judging you. We're not, whether we're talking about fitness and wellness or we're talking about organizing. If we are a professional helper, if we're a lifestyle professional, we're not judging you.
right.
That's not what we're here for.
And I say that all the time. I do. Because it's okay that I have to reassure you. I mean, I've had to be reassured by people.
People.
And so I get it. And I'm totally okay with that. It's like, I'm here, anytime you start to feel that feeling. I just started with a new lady 2 weeks ago, and she said the same thing. I almost canceled because I don't want you to see the mess. And I said, every time you get that thought, I want you to replace it with Rachel is here to help me.
Nice
And
reframe.
thank you. And I mean, it's taking practice and on my part to be able to support, because in my mind, I am not a hoarder. For me, sorry, I just have
A
never.
keeper of things.
I mean, I do believe in sentimental things, don't get me wrong, and I do have a house full of things that make me feel good. But when you need like an extra storage unit or an extra thing, because no, I've just never been like that. So it's easy for me to let go of things. And so I've really had to focus on the people who are hiring me who are not, and to be kind and empathetic, and kind of walk next to them instead of walking ahead of them and saying, just get rid of it. You can't do that. You can't
No.
do that with people who are so emotionally attached to their past, that it's just not going to work.
Yeah, and I know I've shared this with you. I share with the listeners that there are some people in my life who are hoarders, and I grew up in an environment where there were some very obvious hoarders. And one thing that I know from being in those environments and being around those people is that so often the tendency to keep objects, to keep stuff, comes from trauma. And it's, I think, so easy for people who don't have that experience, just like people who don't compulsively eat, people who aren't afraid of exercise, who aren't afraid of stepping foot in a gym. It makes them have like break out into cold sweats and have a panic attack just to imagine themselves with a gym membership. If you're not one of those people, it's so easy to underestimate how powerful those emotions are, how crippling and overwhelming they can be. I'm so grateful for them that they have you to hold that space for them. But I think there's probably also some people who just have like, okay, the COVID years got away from me, the post-COVID era has gotten away from me, and my house is full of junk, and I look at it and I feel overwhelmed. That know that they want to change, and maybe even are ready to change, but when they see it all at once, it's so overwhelming. So you mentioned a moment ago the process, right? Like, oh, okay, then now we're going to be in the process. Can you talk a little bit about what that process looks like? Whether you're with a professional organizer, you're working on your own, how do we meet that overwhelm of like, woof, there's a lot to do here?
That's a great question. And I think the first step is to honor that feeling. It's because you are going to be overwhelmed no matter what. So just be like, I'm totally overwhelmed and this is going to not be fun. And then,
I think we
and
can say
then,
suck. We could say it sucks.
okay, it's going to suck. And so once you kind of honor those feelings, my suggestion is always start with the smallest of a project, especially if you're going to attempt to do it by yourself. If it's a closet, take one shelf or take one half of the bar. Like literally make it something that is doable in an hour or a couple of hours. And then once you get through that, you're like, oh, it gives you a little bit more confidence, right? The first time you can do like a barbell squat, you're like, oh, okay, I got this. I am getting stronger. So then you can take on the rest of the closet. It doesn't have to be, and I know personalities are very different. Some people feel like I should be able to do my entire 5,000 square foot home in a day. There's just no way.
Yeah.
There's no way. And then if you're hiring a professional organizer, I think having the mentality that you do when you hire a trainer, right? You don't hire them for 3 sessions thinking that you're going to get onto your wellness journey. It takes time. And I tell people that I'm as transparent as I can possibly be. Once I see the space, I said, I'm going to need about 4 weeks for this. Or I can say to you, I can get this done in 2 visits. But I do need people to understand, especially if it's a house full of things, it's going to take time.
Yeah, it's a process, it's a journey. And I want to speak to something, you alluded earlier that I had helped you on your journey. Okay, you're welcome. But you have helped me too. Because even in our passing conversations about how you were framing your work and the transition you were in and all of that, Rachel gave some advice there about chunking it down to a doable bit. And as somebody who really struggles with these skills, and I do, for me, it is not soothing, much to my husband's chagrin. Even chunking it down to, okay, I've got half an hour, a client canceled, I've got half an hour I didn't think I'd have, I don't have a deadline today. I'm going to, and I did this right before we got on to record, Rachel, I was thinking of you. I'm going to clean up that one corner, or I'm going to clear off that couch that's covered in papers. And it's not perfect. It's definitely everything, but not perfect. But it's progress, and that little boost of confidence and satisfaction, and there's probably dopamine in there somewhere that says okay, that's better. And the thing that I've noticed for myself, and I'm hoping that you can speak to this for our listeners, is I really took for granted how much the organization of my space was subconsciously impacting my clarity of thought, my mood, just all of these underlying things that until I started improving my spaces and getting over the clutter thing, that I just didn't even know it was there. And that's when I really started to feel oh, this is a wellness practice.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to speak to that relationship of the pressure of the clutter versus the clarity of the organization? And like you said, knowing where stuff is and not having to hunt around and not feeling like there's a million things that I have to do that I'll never get to. Thoughts on that? That was a little rant.
No, that was great because again, in dealing with these beautiful women, I am for sure experiencing that. So I think that, in my conversations with you, it's do you want to feel more peaceful? Do you want to feel more relaxed? Do you want to feel more, I ask questions. What do you want to experience or feel when you come into this room? And it kind of helps me organize it to that sense of, okay, I want my closet. I want to be able to get dressed in 5 minutes. I don't want to think about what I'm wearing. I love that because it helps me organize your closet. Okay, you need a top, you need a bottom, you need shoes. Boom, boom, boom.
Boop, 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 boop.
Yeah. And I think that it's so important to know what you're looking for in your space and to have that conversation because again, I don't knock any of these other organizers. I think they're amazing. And I also watch these cool shows. But if I'm not organizing your space for you, it's not going to stay like that. And B, that emotional connection and that freedom is not going to happen for you. And for me, that's not the point of doing this, doing this job. I want you to feel peaceful. I want you to feel calm, and I want you to feel confident. And I definitely want you to feel like this is my home. This is my space. And I don't know if I ever told you the story, but the best piece of advice I ever got when I first moved to Manhattan, I was in a store and I was talking to this sales girl, and she said, honey, the first thing you better do is get an apartment and make sure that it's your sanctuary, because the craziness of Manhattan is you need that. You need to be able to come home and feel peaceful. And I never forgot that. And I'm wondering if that advice kind of makes me the organizer that I am, because that is so valuable.
Shout out to random service provider, random retail worker
Yeah.
many moons ago. But I want, so let's rewind the tape. I hear you got to be ready to make a real change, right? And that's true of whatever it is we're talking about, that we're not doing it for shoulds, we're not shooting on ourselves. And to recognize that you're going to have some difficult emotion come up if you're a person that struggles with this kind of thing. And I can, like I said, I own it up. I'm a person that struggles with this kind of thing. And sometimes it is emotional. Sometimes you're letting go of things that you feel a sense of obligation, guilt, connection to, fear. Stuff comes up. and working through it with an acceptance and even an openness, a welcoming that we're letting go of that intensity as well. And then this question that you asked, which because you've heard me ask it in session, how do you want to feel? I think how do you want to feel is such an important question when we're talking about any kind of wellness domain journey, because the goal isn't some external abstraction. The goal is something authentic and internal, what's right for you. And then to your point, you can even design the workflow, the structure, the system of the space toward those ends. And before you telling the story of the woman in the closet and the boop boop boop, it didn't even occur to me that I would have organizing goals. You've just given me like a whole other thing that I have to think about now, Rachel.
You are
Thank you
welcome.
and damn you at the same time.
Listen, I am thinking about adding a virtual organizing to my skill set. So if you want to be my guinea pig, let's do it.
Which for the listeners' benefit, Rachel has been trying to get me to agree to that for about a year, because she knows just off camera, just to like, if you're watching on the video, just off camera, is this like small mountain of papers and old computers and I'm looking at it with, see, there's the anxiety climbing that I know needs to happen. And I just got to get through it. I just got to breathe. Okay. Thank you, coach. Thank you, coach.
You're welcome.
If someone is struggling with that external pressure, with that feeling of, I should have a clean house and I must not be a good whatever the heck label role because I don't look like Martha Stewart blessed me with her approval. What advice would you give them about all of that pressure and information and yada yada?
Well, just like I would in my body love stuff, I would say we have to reframe your thinking and how you speak to yourself, because you're putting this pressure on yourself to be something you're just not. And really to just kind of teach them how to be kind to themselves. And this woman that I'm just started with, she's doing all those things. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. This is a mess. And I tell her, my dear, you hired me to help you do this. You don't need to apologize for what you've been experiencing in your life, or you don't have to apologize for what your life has brought you to this point. It's your life, and I'm just here to kind of open a new door for you. And I love that when I see the shoulders relax, right? When I'm dealing with a client, or I see them take a deep breath, or I watch on their face, like digest what I've just said to them. That makes me, I think, more happy than actually finishing the job. Because to know, especially from personal experience, what that deep breath and what relaxing those shoulders actually means, it means a lot. And to be able to carry that into this next chapter for her, I'm so excited for her.
I'm so proud of you.
I
It really
know.
is cool work that you're doing at this overlap. And that's why I was so excited to have you here. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your wisdom with us, because I really feel like this is another emerging horizon in the wellness space where there's so much value here, but the way we've talked about it in the past, where it's been about aesthetics and not about function, and I don't know if you want to speak at all about the difference between those, because I realize here we are at the end, and we haven't really talked about this difference between a functional space and a pretty space. We did a little bit. But I think so often we've talked about it like, oh, you got to get rid of the junk so it looks nice or whatever. And that's not really the point. Do you want to speak to that point as we come to the end of our time together today?
I would love to. I think having aesthetically organized home is great. I mean, if you were to look at my closet, you'd be like, that's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. But it is functional for me. I've organized it in a way that, and I'm happy to tell my secrets. I do clothes by item, like tops. I do it by color, and then I do it by sleeve length. And I'm a lefty, so everything in my closet is hanging from the left. If you're a righty, you should hang your clothes facing the right. it also makes your life very easy. And I think it looks pretty. But again, being pretty doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be functional for you. And especially if you don't have kids and it's just an adult relationship in the home, you don't need it to look pretty. You need it to be, it's like a communication between you and your partner. It's like, if you don't want your husband every 5 minutes, where's this? Where's that? Where's that? You two have to come together and decide how your kitchen or your bathroom or whatever shared space is going to look like. You want to ask me something?
I only listened to about half of what you just said, which I've never admitted to a guest before, but it's because I am stuck on the idea that you directionally hang your clothes. So anybody who has been following the show or following me on socials for a long time know that I have been on this whole journey, not just about aesthetically figuring out my house, but aesthetically figuring out my clothes, because I am at 40 years old, didn't know how to dress myself. So last year we had Lulu Story on the show and we talked about style, and I did all this stuff on Instagram about my style and trying to figure out how to dress like an adult. With that came having to learn how to care for nicer clothes, because I grew up really poor and I've never had nice clothes before. And figuring out, again, this is where I get into like everything about life is about skills. And there's so many skills that people take for granted because they got downloaded those skills from their family and culture of origin. And if you didn't, you get lost. So my husband has been teaching me about like the right kind of hangers and what kind of travel bags to use for my garments and like all this stuff you just never even knew was there. But you have just rocked my world. I have to think about the direction that I hang them, Rachel. I don't think I can handle that.
I feel like you can.
I don't know.
And trust me, once you hang everything in the correct direction, it's going to be a game changer.
I thought we were going to do virtual session for my office, but maybe we're going to do virtual session for my closets are a doozy. They're better though. They're better. The backstory of Rachel being on the show was actually that on my birthday, I reorganized my closets and I texted her and said, I cannot believe how good it felt to do my closets on my birthday. Will you come on Better Than Fine and talk about this? So I'm so grateful that you did. Where could our listeners find you? I know you mentioned that right now you're working in South Carolina. You're thinking about this virtual offering. How might our listeners find you and your work?
So I am going through what I am trying to express myself in a way that I'm known for being a professional organizer, but I'm still a fitness person. And there's a little disconnect happening. So, I mean, my Organized by Rachel is my organized name. I do have social media, but it's still under Rachel Lavin Lifestyle and Wellness. I don't know what direction I'm going with that, to be honest with you. And my website is kind of like a little, mishmash of everything too. So that's where we're at with that. But I'm definitely hoping to get that cleaned up in the next month or so.
So the website is Organized by Rachel. The Instagram is
No,
Rachel
still,
Lavin Lifestyle and Wellness.
Rachel Lavin Lifestyle and Wellness is the website, but my organization stuff is on there. I do have a Insta page, Organized by Rachel, but again, it's a little messy. I apologize, but we'll get there.
We're working on the branding. It's all a journey. And as long as the thing that matters is being successful.
That's where I'm not organized, is my social media.
That's okay, because you're good at organizing in actual reality, which one might argue it might have more value. Well, thank you so much, Rachel, for being on the show. We're very grateful to have had you.
Thank you. Love you.
Love you. Dill, of course, we would love to hear your feedback. And I know a number of you have reached out to me recently with what our winter offering, our end of the year, Christmas and New Year's and holiday episodes meant to you. So I just want to thank the listeners who reached out to let us know that those episodes were really helpful to your mental health and well-being. And I'm grateful to know that. And now Eric, our producer, knows that too. If you want to if you would like to give me feedback, you can email me. That's the sentence, info@darlene.coach. On Instagram, I am also darlene.coach. You can find me on LinkedIn as well. If you're a fan of the show, I hope that you have subscribed described. I also want to invite you that if your health and well-being is a priority for you in 2025, I hope that you have considered joining the Wellbeing Revolution, my new online community. If you are thinking about fleeing from social media with everything that's been in the news, but you still want a way to engage in digital community, you can join us at the Wellbeing Revolution. Reach out for details. Thank you so much. Take good care of yourselves and be well.